This week's edition of NJBIA's Minding Your Business is brought to you in part by AT&T, helping family, friends, and neighbors connect in meaningful ways every day. PPAC Gladstone Bank, known nationally and in New Jersey for providing unparalleled client service, integrity, and trust for over 100 years. New Jersey's community colleges, aligning education to build an innovative workforce. Find out how your business can benefit at njpathways.org. And by New Jersey Business Magazine, providing critical information needs for New Jersey's business community for more than 66 years.
Welcome to NJBIA's Minding Your Business. I'm Bob Considine. Well, Sachs LLP is one of the fastest growing accounting firms in the nation, but they also separate themselves from their peers by providing dedicated consulting services to nonprofits. Here to discuss all the great facts about Sachs and her role with the firm is the Director of Strategic Business Transformation, Lauren Frary. Lauren, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, so this is exciting. I've been looking forward to talking to you, but before we get into your role here, let's talk a little bit about Sachs LLP. What kind of ground does it cover? What kind of services are you providing?
So Sachs is a top 75 audit, tax, and advisory firm. We specialize in several industries, including construction, healthcare, cannabis, real estate,
Right.
And nonprofit, which is kind of where I fit in. I think that Sachs really stands out because they really want to be the experts in those industries.
Right.
And so we offer, advisory and consulting to make sure that our clients' needs are met.
Yeah. So it's audit, advisory, accounting,
Tax,
investment bank. It's a whole line of stuff. Even wealth management, even, right?
Yep.
Okay, great. And I also saw on the website, this was very interesting to me. Sachs provides what is called fractional finance practice, or CFO.
Right.
What is that?
So that is, I believe it's an emerging trend, certainly an emerging trend in the nonprofit sector, where organizations can hire a fractional CFO, a part-time CFO, to kind of handle the big ticket items, right? Tax and audit, of course, for nonprofits, the 990s, reporting, and it often provides some cost savings because you're not hiring a full-time CFO, paying the benefits, right?
Right. That's great.
But get an amazing product by a true professional.
And there's flexibility with this. You can use it per month or per project, perhaps, right?
It's based on your size and your need. So it's very flexible.
All right, very good. All right, so now let's talk about your role with Sachs. I guess it would have been a year and a half ago you joined the firm. What is your role, and what are you doing right now with the firm?
So my role is Director of Business Transformation and also nonprofit consulting. Right. So I have a very unique position in an audit firm. I come from a background of a nonprofit. So I worked for 35 years in the nonprofit sector.
Whereabouts?
In Somerset County. Okay. Most of my work was in Somerset County, a human services organization, somewhere between $17 and $20 million. And then the related foundation, which was the fundraising arm of that organization. So I worked in and around that industry and spent the last 15 years as the executive director of that organization. Okay. That gave me a tremendous amount of experience, exposure. Yeah. And so when I decided to retire from that position, because I feel strongly that executive directors, it should not be a lifetime appointment, right? Okay. You need fresh eyes on the organization. Sure. So I retired, and I had actually been using Sachs as my auditor.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I have a testimony about, I know how great they are. Yeah. And I was invited to join the team and start to round out their tax and audit services by providing this level of consulting to the nonprofit sector.
Okay. And so going from being in a nonprofit to helping them, I'm sure you came with great wisdom in terms of experiences, even empathy, sympathy for the challenges that they have to endure.
Yeah, I did. And it's funny because a lot of times when I talk to executive directors that I'm working with at Saks, when they understand that I actually came from the sector, a lot of times they'll look at me and they'll say, well, can I just call you, because it's really lonely at the top, right? So
can I call you too? I mean, I get a little
always. But yeah, so I think when people understand that I've actually been in their shoes, clearly I've survived.
Right.
Then it adds a lot of credence to the work that I'm going to do with them.
Yeah, I'm also thinking the level of detail that must be needed to run or to operate a nonprofit. We think in terms of businesses have small margins. Nonprofits, the margins are even smaller. And then you got to get the fundraising. So generally speaking, is it more of a challenge to drive positive outcomes for nonprofits?
I think the challenge really is managing the operations of the organization, right? So when we think about nonprofits, we think about all of the great work, all of the people and communities that they're impacting.
Absolutely.
And not really thinking about, well, it is a business. You have to manage the business side. And so I always called that kind of the compassion compliance balance, right? You've got to be in compliance, but you also have to have compassion.
Right.
And sometimes that balance gets out of whack. Right.
Is it a matter of the people, maybe people who are newer at this, they're coming at it with their heartstrings more than their purse strings? Is that pretty much? Okay.
Yeah. And I think that that's the right place to come from.
Right.
It's just being able to look at the business and figure out what additional support and personnel that you need to run a smooth, operation and impact the community.
Okay. I heard you talk about dealing with something called functional expenses in nonprofits. What is that?
Functional expenses. So that is part of your reporting, part of your compliance.
Right.
And nonprofits have to report their expenses in categories.
I see.
Administrative, programs, and fundraising.
Right.
And that kind of creates a ratio
Right.
that oftentimes nonprofit watchdogs use to kind of rate the organization, right?
Okay.
So there's an industry standard that maybe 80% of the expenses should be related to programs and only 20% to
overhead.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very interesting. And there's watchdogs for people, for nonprofits like that?
So there's Charity Navigator, right, and Candid,
Right.
And they have a rating system.
I see.
And one of the pieces of that rating system is that ratio. Now, I would argue that that needs to start to change, because as nonprofits go forward, they are going to have to invest in their infrastructure, in particular technology, soon AI, right, and their staff.
Right.
And so that's going to shift that ratio.
Right. You literally stole my next question, which was, each nonprofit is different. When you talk about investment, is it 99% of the time technology and workforce? Is that where it should be going, or is it case specific?
It really is. It's very case specific, right? So many organizations have properties and spaces in which to run their programs. Many don't, right? So it really, there's such a broad array of sizes and types of nonprofits that it's not a one size fits all.
Have you seen in your career just nonprofits who were just doing great work but they couldn't survive just because of the financial challenges, I guess?
Yep, financial challenges, and I think COVID really turned a lot of nonprofits around. And I think that for nonprofits who are in the midst of COVID, if they didn't kind of pivot their business model, they tended to not survive.
Yeah, that's too bad.
And it's very sad.
It is, because when you think about what they're offering to their community, it's the community that suffers at the end of the day, right?
Exactly, exactly.
What about, you also said something about a starvation cycle, and I didn't know what that meant. It sounded interesting. Maybe it's a diet of some sort. But,
No. So we call the starvation cycle. This is where it has to do with the kind of the funding cycle, right?
Okay.
And a lot of times, and this is changing, which is good. A lot of times, funders will say, we will invest in your organization. and we're going to give you some money, but all that money has to go to programs alone.
I see.
You can't use any of that for overhead,
right? Right.
So the money goes into programs. You can't use it for administration, or you can use only a very small amount of it, which does not allow you to grow your organization, right?
Yep.
And then the funder comes back and says, well, we're not going to fund you because you're not growing. So it's kind of this cycle.
It's a starvation cycle.
It's a starvation cycle.
And they have to account for that. I mean, you're an accountant, but I mean, you have to show that, right? I mean.
Yeah, there's reporting.
Right.
Now, the good news for nonprofits is there is a trend in philanthropy called trust-based giving.
Okay.
Very excited about that because that starts to break that cycle and it changes the power balance.
Okay.
And really it's based on some principles around multi-year, unrestricted giving, right? So you use the money, how it will best serve your communities.
And when we talk about funders, are we talking about businesses for the most part? Or
and mostly foundations.
Foundations.
Right, so the larger foundations in New Jersey are starting to talk about and move towards trust-based philanthropy.
Very good, very good. What are other kind of trends are you seeing in the nonprofit sector that maybe aren't so positive?
So, I mean, I think that we're seeing, it's always going to be about fundraising, right? That's always going to be a trend.
Right.
There were a couple of national reports that came out last year that kind of identified that giving was down across all sectors, right? Corporations and individuals. So that kind of really put people on edge. And so what we have advised our clients is make sure that you're diversifying, right, your strategy. So it can't just be events, it can't just be grants, right? You need to have a combination and you have to stay abreast of what's happening in philanthropy. Planned giving, donor advised funds, right? You have to understand.
What's donor advised funds? That's interesting.
That's kind of, I can't get into a lot of the technicalities of it, but it's pooled money that the donor can say, I want it to go to a particular cause or mission.
Right.
So fundraising is always going to be a big trend. I think another big trend is managing employees. And there's always this debate about, do you put your dollars to recruitment or retention? Right? Where's the best use of those dollars?
Right.
And so I have a particular opinion about that. I think retaining good employees should be the priority.
Right.
But that's definitely a trend, is managing that aspect about the nonprofit.
Yeah, I would think it would depend on the quality of the employees you have.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, exactly.
So, in closing, Lauren, I really wanted to ask you this. As somebody who worked in the nonprofit sector, and now you're helping them to survive and thrive. What do you get out of this personally? What are you enjoying about this?
So, I'm on a kind of personal and professional mission, right, to support our nonprofit sector, to make sure that they're strong. And the reason is that if you think about the nonprofit sector and your own life, right? I use nonprofits all the time. My kids went to a YMCA camp, right? I belong to a church.
Right.
And I think if we can keep the nonprofit sector strong, that is going to contribute to the sustainability of our communities. And to me, that's very important.
Yeah, well done. You're doing a great job at Sachs LLP. For more information, go to sacsllp.com. You're going to hit the industry expertise tab and then go to nonprofit for all the information. Lauren, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll be back right after these words.
Calm before the storm? No, thank you. This is Jim's time to shine. And Mike's. And Jennifer's. Helmets? Check. Drones? Check. Checking that thing we just checked? Double check. We ain't got time to chill. We're out here driving this thing. This is when we get to work. To keep you connected. No matter what. Connect before the storm. Change how we weather them. Connecting changes everything. AT&T.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again. Because a vision softly dreaming left its scenes while I was sleeping. And whispered in the sound of silence.
Welcome back to NJBIA's Minding Your Business. I'm Bob Considine. Well, stop us if you've heard this before. There's another bill being pushed by the Assembly that will hurt New Jersey's smallest businesses. This one revolves around expanded family leave, and here to talk about it is NJBIA Vice President of Government Affairs, Elissa Frank. Elissa, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Bob.
You know, before we get started on this bill, this is kind of your first time here on Minding Your Business. You've been with NJBIA for how long now?
I think 4 months now.
And so do you like it?
I absolutely love it.
You sure?
I'm super happy here.
Because we could change things if you're not happy.
No, it's great here. Super happy, learning so much.
Good. Yeah, we're very lucky to have you, and you've been doing a great job.
Thank you, Bob.
All right, so now let's talk about this bill. This is Bill A3451.
Yes.
What is it exactly seeking to achieve?
So what this bill does is it requires employers employing as few as 5 employees to provide job reinstatement upon an employee's return from paid family leave.
Okay, so previously it used to be a much higher number, that threshold, right? You're saying it's 5 now. What was it?
Right.
Or what is it currently?
Yeah, so currently under the Family Leave Act, which is the act that's governing how paid family leave is run in New Jersey, there is a small business exemption threshold, which says that businesses employing 30 or less employees would have to then provide that job reinstatement we were talking about.
Okay, so now so this bill seems to want to make it so more businesses will have to provide this family leave.
Right, so it's dropping that threshold number from 30 employees to 5.
Got it. Okay, so 5 seems like a very small number.
It is. You're right.
How can this how might this harm New Jersey's smallest businesses?
Right. So basically what this bill is really hitting on are those micro businesses you're seeing on Main Street. So like your florist, your laundromat.
Right.
Businesses like that could be run by families and people in the community. These are businesses that are contributing to the youth softball league.
Yeah.
And you could see their name on the t-shirts and it's really cute.
It is.
And they're pillars in their communities.
Right.
And this would really impact them. So if you don't mind, if you'll indulge me, I'll provide an example of how this bill would really affect these businesses. So let's say you have a 15-person florist shop, right? And you have one person, this could be the wife of the owner, that would cover accounting, compliance, and answering the phones in the shop.
Sure.
So if she has to go out on leave for whatever reason that might be, and there's a younger employee, maybe a younger woman who's low income, and she really wants to step up to the plate and work on accounting issues, cover accounting for the whole florist.
It's an opportunity, right?
It's an opportunity for a younger woman and to promote that person internally. That's kind of what we want to see, right? And unfortunately, under this bill, if it's signed into law, what would happen is they would have to keep that job open, so that job that woman left who had to go out on leave, and they would not be able to promote this person internally because that's actually a failure to provide job reinstatement.
Wow, right.
So then, let's say this woman comes back, she's seeing this other individual covering accounting, and that means that her job is different than the job that she left before going out on leave.
It has to be the same exactly.
Exactly. That's really what the pinnacle of this bill is. She could actually then go ahead and sue her employer for failure to provide job reinstatement.
Wow, that's too bad. And what in a different situation where they actually bring somebody in to do it? Now you're talking about job training costs. It gets more expensive.
Right. It's really expensive to train a new employee. As so many people that are watching this might know, it's really expensive to provide that training. And even just going out through the hiring process is quite difficult.
Yeah.
And I'd also like to add, back in July, a new bill was signed into law called the Temporary Workers Bill of Rights.
Yeah.
What this bill did is it actually makes it more difficult to hire employees or temporary employees in New Jersey. So when there's a workforce gap, it's more difficult for people to come in and provide temporary work than it would be before this bill was signed into law.
So the irony here would be that the same people who are supporting this proposed law may be the same people who supported making it more difficult to hire temporary workers.
Exactly. That's the irony. These things were not considered before the legislature together. And that's the difficult thing we're seeing because, we're not jumping up and down saying that the world is ending, but we are saying a death by 1,000 cuts. This really would be a very deep cut. And after the 1,000th cut, how many more regulations and bad mandatory issues can businesses really take.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And I'm also thinking about, that just going from 30 to 5. If you have 30 employees, okay, somebody's going to go out for 12 weeks. Could be up to 12 weeks.
Right, exactly.
So, okay, now you got 29 others who can potentially pick up the slack.
Right.
If you get it down to 5 or 10, it's a way different ballgame.
Exactly. And even in testimony for people that were supporting this bill, they were saying the solution that they had for businesses that would be faced with this new regulation would be to have business owners and employees of the business just work harder, not really provide a solution for these employers.
Right, which kind of makes an assumption they're already not working that hard, which they probably are. Right?
Exactly. And they really are. And as we've heard from testimony in opposition to the bill, the average small business owner in New Jersey only makes $60,000 a year.
Yeah.
It's not like they're, living in mansions, rolling down in Mercedes.
Right.
It's not that situation.
Right. Or it could be a 1974 Mercedes.
Or it could be, it could be, and those are pretty cool.
Yeah, and diesel. All right. So I've also read supporters of expanded family leave. They say that some 900,000 New Jersey workers who are paying family leave insurance won't be able to use it under the current law. Is that true?
That's not true because the way it works, and it's kind of difficult. So there's the Family Leave Act, which regulates how somebody could go out on leave for what period of time. Technically, this is the unpaid portion of the family leave program in New Jersey.
I see.
And then there's the Family Leave Insurance Program in New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
And that's what they're talking about. So there's no requirement that you have to work for an employer as big as 30 employees to be able to tap into that program.
Very interesting.
The Family Leave Insurance Program, what's different about it is it provides income substitution.
Right.
It really has nothing to do with that reinstatement. And what this bill does is it carries over the Family Leave Act's reinstatement provisions into the Family Leave Insurance Program. So anyone taking that insurance program benefits would also get reinstatement.
Gotcha. Let's go back in time a little bit, Elissa. We're talking about Family Leave Act. This goes back to 2008.
Right.
When at the time, what I remember was, wow, this is a pretty great program. New Jersey's way out there on this.
Right.
But wasn't it built on compromise, that bill?
Yeah, so I know I was not here at the time, but with that said, we were able to find a really great compromise between employee protections and employer flexibility to do business the way that works best for them.
Right.
And after, doing a lot of research, I know the business community and advocates on the other side felt that 30 employees was that fair balance and struck that balance. Yeah. Unfortunately, this bill would upend that balance that we work so hard to achieve.
That was like months they worked on that bill.
Right, even years, I believe.
Yeah, really. Okay. So, and I'm guessing there's nobody in the legislature now who has an appreciation for the balance that was struck 16 years ago?
I believe there is. Unfortunately, as you discussed earlier, the assembly version of the bill did pass, but the Senate president has expressed concerns about the bill, and I believe that he really would like to honor that balance that we struck when we first looked at this 15 years ago.
Right.
A Senate bill has not actually been introduced.
Well, that's good. So
we're not really anticipating it moving in the Senate quickly, at least.
And I remember the last session, the lame duck session, which happened, ended November to beginning of this January. It didn't go all the way through the assembly at the time either, right?
No, it didn't.
Okay. And was it because maybe there wasn't the appetite for as many legislators needed at that point to get it to the finish line through the assembly? Or was it just a matter of we're just going to focus on this in the next session?
I think they simply just ran out of time.
Yeah, okay.
Because, lame duck was super quick, and for it to move and progress the way the sponsors intended it for it to, they didn't have that support on the Senate side. So I think maybe in lame duck, there were other bills that they wanted to prioritize getting through at that time, and this was just not one of them.
And you hit on some before about how things have changed in 16 years.
Yes.
New Jersey small businesses have way more burdens than they did 16 years ago.
Yes, they do.
We're talking obviously minimum wage, but what else are we talking about here?
Well, we're talking about recovering from COVID restrictions.
Yeah.
where we've unfortunately seen a lot of businesses on Main Street boarded up because they just couldn't continue doing business.
Right.
We're also seeing the Temporary Workers Bill of Rights. There was also a bill that was signed into law that the Department of Labor is doing regulations for right now that concerns reporting unemployment insurance, which is actually burdensome on these employers that provide it.
Yeah, and you brought up COVID and unemployment insurance. They also were hit, or all businesses were hit with unemployment insurance greater tax.
Yes.
Because the fund went dry because of COVID.
Right.
And they didn't use federal dollars to help replenish the fund. So I actually wanted to read you some, just talked about the margins that New Jersey small businesses are challenged by. This is from NJBIA's Business Outlook survey at the end of 2023. It said, and this was from more than 500 employers, mostly small businesses, that found that only 32% of respondents reported profits for the year in 2023, and at the same time, 44% reported a loss. And their outlooks for 2024 for profits was also lukewarm. Only 37% said they believe they will make a profit, compared to 28% who said they won't. That's a net positive of 9%, which is the lowest outlook for profits in the survey since 2012. Elissa, where do you see this going? Obviously, you mentioned Senate President Scutari's reluctance for this. Do you think the Assembly and the Senate will get together and maybe try to change the bill somehow so it's more palatable for business?
We actually submitted a amendment request to the sponsor's office on the Assembly side, which includes a number of amendments that we'd like to see, which would strike that balance that we were talking about earlier.
Right.
But that would kind of be, we haven't really heard anything from the other side.
I guess it remains to be seen.
It does.
It's early in the year.
It does, but that would be a very fair, the amendments that we shared would be a very fair compromise, we believe, and make it a little bit easier on businesses and something businesses could live with.
Well, Elissa, Frank, you're doing a great job. We
Thanks,
know you're going to
Bob.
keep fighting for New Jersey small businesses. Keep up the great work and come back anytime.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll see you soon. In closing today, some good news for New Jersey-based technology companies and manufacturers, brought to you by the fine folks at the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. NJEDA has launched monthly innovation program hours to highlight programs offered by the authority to stimulate the innovation economy. Alternating between in-person and virtual events, these one-on-one sessions with EDA's innovation team are there to discuss programs and networking opportunities with industry stakeholders. And for New Jersey manufacturers, NJEDA has opened applications for Phase 2 of the state's manufacturing voucher program. The MVP Phase 2 program will make available $20 million in grant funding through a rolling application process to provide New Jersey manufacturers with access to essential equipment, which will enhance efficiency, productivity, and overall profitability in New Jersey. For more information on either NJEDA program, go to njeda.org to find more details. NJBIA thanks NJEDA for these great programs to advance business in New Jersey, and we thank you for joining us on NJBIA is Minding Your Business. We'll see you next time.
If you are looking for affordable health plan choices that offer more value to you and your employees, you might want to consider an AMT Omnia plan. They were created to provide lower-priced options for consumers while encouraging higher quality care from participating providers. AMT Omnia plans use the Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield network, giving you and your employees in-network access to thousands of providers across New Jersey. Within the Omnia network, providers are designated as Tier 1 or Tier 2. Tier 1 providers have lower plan copays and out-of-pocket costs. Tier 2 includes other in-network providers who are available to plan participants with a modest increase in out-of-pocket expenses. Offering Omnia plans is just one more way that AMT offers more options with better service at a lower cost. To find the best plan for your situation, schedule a free AMT health plan checkup today
For great networking and educational opportunities, check out njbia.org/events.